Hey guys. Hi everybody. All right, I've got 15 minutes with you, so I'm going to walk you through real-time analytics and how we do it at Redis Labs with Redis. I'm VP of product. I'm a database geek. I've worked on quite a few of these databases. A lot of them relational, some NoSQL, but Redis obviously is my favorite one. So let me introduce the product. By the way, how many people use Redis? Oh, perfect. OK. So Redis is an in-memory open source database. It's great for transactional processing as well as analytics. We are the home of Redis at Redis Labs. We provide the commercial edition as well as the open source edition. We provide the majority of the contributions into the Redis product. We ship an enterprise edition of this product called Redis Enterprise, and I'll talk about how it's different. It's 100% compatible with Redis. If you've got a Redis application, all you need to do is change your connection string, and it will just continue to operate. But Redis Enterprise provides added availability, simplified management, high performance, better scale, and improved security on top of what Redis provides, and a lot of advanced deployment models. So Redis Enterprise is the core technology that we developed, but you can actually get this as a database service in the majority of the public clouds out there. So if you just want to create a database in one of the public clouds, just tell us which geography and which data center, and we'll create it for you, and we'll manage it for you. These are database as a service products. You can also get the same software that we use to host tens of thousands of customers as software. And you can run it under complete control of your own and deploy it on-premise. And that's called Redis Pack. So why is Redis so popular? I just want to kind of touch on a few things that will set the stage for why we are such a popular database. So number one, people love us for performance. We have over 400 million downloads on Docker. It's crazy insane. We get hundreds of thousands of additional downloads every day. And the performance of this environment is just what attracts developers to it. The second one is simplicity. Instead of tables or documents as kind of the core anchoring data model type within the environment, what Redis provides is data structures. And we'll talk a lot about what this brings, but the data structures really make development simplified. You don't have to convert back and forth. There's no ORM. Working with Redis is just like working with frameworks. And versatility, so with Redis 4.0, we added this capability to add your own modules into the mix. You can extend the data types. You can add new commands. We use it to do a lot of the extensions to the environment that we run under Redis Enterprise as well. But it brings a lot of new capabilities. Redis is versatile. I'm going to focus in on the middle section here on analytics and tell you a few of the types of applications that you can build, and give you a few examples of the customers that are using them today. So let me drill in. Since we have limited time, I'm going to focus on 3 different unique cases where Redis with real-time analytics really shines. The first one is I'll talk about some data structures that really are unique. You can't find these in other databases. They really simplify certain types of operations in analytics that need to be real-time and very hard to build with others. I'll talk about machine learning. This is a new important way in which we see new applications come up. Machine learning, especially serving recommendations in real time, that's one of the cases that Redis is great at. And finally, I just want to talk about how to bring in a lot more data into Redis, given RAM is expensive. I'll talk about how we can actually extend your RAM onto Flash and have Redis operate and data process not just in memory, but across RAM and Flash. So you can actually have terabytes of data easily without having to pay for the cost of RAM for all of that. All right, so let's get started with data types. So there's a couple of data types in Redis that really are basic. If you want something like tables, there's hash tables. If you want something like documents, there's JSON types. But there's a couple of unique types that really make it interesting to build analytics applications on top of Redis. Hyperlog is one of them. How many people have had to do a unique count on an entity? Unique count? All right. So hyperlog is a data type that takes fraction of the cost of storage of storing all of the unique visitors, let's say, to a specific product, but can actually do unique count for you. And it's an approximation. It's not an exact count. But given the space that it actually consumes, you can do unique counts for almost anything. In fact, one of our customers, Home Depot, does a unique count for every one of their products in every state, both in brick-and-mortar stores as well as their online stores. But you can find out how many people uniquely visited each one of these products, et cetera. And it actually takes quite a lot of space to be able to store every visitor to every product and be able to count that and constantly report on that for the week, month, day, hour, et cetera. For them, Hyperlog log is a saver, right? It just takes fraction of the amount of space, and you can use Hyperlog log just to add the visitors that are coming in, the unique user IDs, and Hyperlog log will take care of just giving you a count back on the fraction of the space. We also have a lot of modules that allow us to extend the data types that exist in Redis. So things like bloom filters. How many people know what bloom filters are? No? OK, let me talk about bloom filters a little bit. Bloom filter is used for existence searches. So if you're doing fraud detection and you're trying to understand whether a transaction has happened before, the identical transaction has happened before. It's a very common kind of fraud where credit cards will actually be charged by a legitimate transaction, but then there will be a second charge identical to it. And this is one way in which credit card kind of statements, you can easily miss this because you expect this kind of stuff. So bloom filters provide an existence search for a unique transaction. What you can do is you can add it to the bloom filter, and once you add that again, it will tell you whether that transaction had happened or not. And it takes a fraction of the cost of storing every transaction per credit card. So at a very small space with an amazing update speed, you can have an index called bloom filters that will tell you whether that transaction existed before or not, whether it's the first time it's happening or not. So these are some of the cases where the data types themselves are built to be able to provide and uniquely solve specific analytic cases that are real-time. The real-time analytics cases are tough because for a lot of people, if you swipe your credit card and you have to wait 5 minutes before it actually tells you whether it's a good, legitimate transaction or not, that's too long. Nobody would use that credit card anymore. So for a lot of these cases where real-time is the key, Redis is the answer for a lot of people. Let me talk about machine learning. We have a couple of ways in which machine learning can be embedded into Redis as well. Given the data structures that we host, we actually have a module that allows us to do neural networks inside Redis. This is a module that can train on the data that's in Redis, that's coming in real time. We take, for tens of thousands of items and keys, we take about 100 milliseconds to train. So this kind of training is for the last-minute data that actually happened. But it provides recommendations and classifications for things that you can actually throw at it. We have another module called Redis Amell, which is used in combination with TensorFlow or with Spark machine learning libraries, where you can actually take the models you generate, embed it inside Redis, and centrally serve those recommendations directly out of Redis. So we provide commands like forest.run to get you a random forest recommendation based on the attributes you submit into a model. What we find is a lot of our customers store many different models, and they use a weightage across all of them to create user engagement or recommendations. And Redis becomes that central point where they can actually store and update and serve recommendations directly out of. So this is what it looks like. You typically have a training phase, a phase where you create the model and then you serve it. The first two is done best with things like Spark or TensorFlow or Caffe, et cetera. But the last phase typically is some homegrown application that's fairly difficult to develop, or you use Spark. So for a lot of people, replacing that with Redis Enterprise just makes that serving capability much simpler. As I said, we provide direct commands out of Redis that can serve the recommendation to you directly. I won't go through this calculation, but we find that centralizing the serving of recommendations can actually save you up to 90% on infrastructure costs. And compared to Spark, which is not built for interactive applications, we can actually do it much, much faster with much lower latencies. All right, finally, I want to talk about how you can store a lot of data when RAM is so expensive and still get the gains and the speed of Redis with analytics applications. So the point of this is RAM is about 20x more expensive, 10 to 20x more expensive than Flash. So if you could actually extend RAM onto Flash and let you store a lot more data and do the processing in Redis, we could actually provide a cheaper way to store much larger data sets in Redis. And the technology that we provide does exactly that. You get to govern for each database how much Flash memory versus RAM you want to use. We have RuxDB that actually govern the movement of data back and forth in a smart way between Flash and RAM. And all of this technology allows you to change that ratio at any time. So the hot working set stays in RAM, but you can host much, much larger sets of data for cheaper storage on Redis using this Flash technology. And we extend Redis in Redis Enterprise to provide these capabilities, both in the cloud and on-premise. There's a quick calculation here. If you guys are interested, we're going to be at the booth right after the talk. I can walk you through this. But compared to storing everything in RAM, if you're looking at 10 terabyte of storage, we can get you over 80% savings just by using Flash. All right, so let me just mention two customers that are using Redis for real-time analytics, and we'll just conclude it with that. One of them that I wanted to pull up is Redfin. So Redfin has a very similar case of trying to count interest in each property and each agent that is on their website. But they'd like to do that for every hour, every day, every week, every month. And they'd like to do that for every state, every city, every zip code. And that adds up to be a lot of counting. They want to know the unique visitors as well as the total visitors to all of these things. And Redis is perfect for this. As the data inflows into Redis, what they can do is use the Redis data types that are purpose-built for these, like hyperlog log, to count each one of these unique cases. So you end up taking this visitor, and depending on their zip code, you end up inserting them into the state, into the city, and the specific property that they viewed, and you can constantly get a good sense of who is visiting what kind of property and what counts you have, which properties are popular and more engaging for the customers that are on their site. Home Depot does something very similar. They actually use Redis to be able to count the visitors to the products that they actually host. For them, this is 30,000 transactions per second. It's a lot of counting to do. And hyperlog log provides that perfect balance, as well as some of the ML capabilities that we have to be able to engage their customers on their website. This concludes pretty much all the slides that I have. So you can try all of this today. Redislabs.com. We have either the software that you can download in Docker, Windows, or Mac OS, or on the Linux flavors, or you can sign up on the cloud on any one of the public clouds, and you can try all of these things yourself. I appreciate it. Thanks for listening. Thank you.